I've been wanting to add some life to this blank wall for a long time, and I finally built an Espalier trellis for Star Jasmine. This isn't a perfect step-by-step how-to, it's more of a how I did it project.
Probably 6 inches above where I'm digging. I feel like I'm falling.
I'll share the process,
So bad at this. I see why people start with a smaller one because it's kind of hard.
the materials I used, and how I worked around the challenge of these asymmetrical windows. If you're thinking about trying something similar, maybe this will give you some ideas for your own space. Typically, you see something like this on a blank wall with a large diamond shape. Here's the inspiration I was working with. I like the look of the large diamond shapes, but that wasn't going to work with my wall. So instead, I searched for other shapes that I could work with, and I saw the smaller diamond shape, so I thought I could do this too. I took a picture and I started marking it up on my phone and realized that some of the layout I was thinking in my head was going to cut across the windows. So I had to be very strategic with where I placed my anchor points. I thought that I could go to ChatGPT for some inspiration to help me with this grid process, but I had trouble informing the software to get it to go around the windows. It felt a little bit too modern for me, and I wanted this more European style look. So I grabbed some sidewalk chalk and got to work trying to visualize it on the wall, because doing it on my phone wasn't doing me any justice. Throughout the whole process and my research, I was calling this a wire trellis. So when I was looking up how-to videos of other people doing it, I wasn't really finding very many videos until I learned this is actually called an espalier. And once I started researching that, I found a lot more information. So let me share with you what I found. Normally this isn't that complicated of a project because people are doing this on like a blank wall. I want to do this on a wall that has asymmetrical windows. I just didn't imagine having to put this many holes in the wall. So I'd need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I put one here. Not here. But here. Because I could put a big triangle here. I mean a big diamond. 1, 2, 3, but there would be a gap here. And it would just be cut off. Like it would I just put the bottom of the diamond, so I just put a triangle right there, and then I could go up 1, 2, 2 feet this way, 16 inches apart at the widest. I think I'm just going to start doing it. An espalier is a way of training plants to grow against a flat surface, usually with wires or a frame. It's a method you often see with fruit trees, but sometimes you'll also see it with star jasmine, and that's what I did here. The goal is to turn a plain wall into something green and structured. The hardest part of this project wasn't the drilling or the wiring. It was figuring out the layout that worked around these 2 windows. They're uneven. They're not the same size. So I couldn't make a perfect grid. My solution was to measure, step back, draw it on the wall, remeasure, over and over. I almost gave up, but I kept doing it until it looked balanced to the eye. I started by marking the anchor points. Where there's intersections of the chalk is where I'm going to drill the anchor point. Hard to tell, but the yellow chalk is the grid. The second line up from the bottom is actually where the intersection of the wires to make the X shape. I'm glad that I thought to include at least one of those in this process, because later you'll find out it was a little difficult to figure out where the wires were crossing once I was installing it. When you step back and look at this, and some of you might be thinking of this looking at the footage, it's not even in between the windows. That really bothered me, and it was one of the most difficult parts of this project, was getting things to look even though they aren't. So I tried to get the diamond shapes as centered in between these 2 windows as I could. That means I had to adjust these anchor points. So I had to be very careful. Each intersection you'll see, I'm marking over 3 inches from each point. That's where I'll drill to put the anchors. I had to make sure they lined up as evenly as possible around the windows. Then I just got to it once I figured that out, with drilling, setting anchors, and then I go through and I'll thread the wire. here's what I used to make this work. Since my brain was already working so hard trying to figure out the layout, I didn't want to have to think about the materials, so I purchased things in kits. There's a stainless steel wire kit that comes with the trimmers, the crimpers, the little pieces to clamp. I used a drill I already had, and I bought another kit off Amazon that was the right anchors for the right eye hooks. Nothing too complicated, but the little hardware pieces make a big difference in keeping things easy to manage. I already had a 1/4-inch drill bit and a drill, and thankfully I had a hammer drill, which is what I needed to use because the stucco was really tough. This part took a few afternoons. I kept running into little issues, difficult stucco. I had some issues with the eye hooks. Some of the spacing was off, so I'd have to stop and rethink and come back later when I had more time. It's definitely a project you can chip away at. It's not a rush. Once the wires were in place, I made sure they were as tight as possible, and I used these little crimpers to clamp down the edges. The wire is really pokey, so just be careful. After I installed the wall anchors, I wanted to make sure that this was watertight, so I went in with some exterior caulking in a color similar to the wall color. I'm not going to bother painting it because eventually the greenery is just going to take over and fill it all in. So what I'm doing here is I'm going in with some caulking and just going around each of the entry points around the anchors to make sure there aren't any gaps. Finally, I planted the star jasmine at the base of the wall. The plant to the right is a little bit farther away from the wall than I'd like because I'm dealing with a little bit of foundation. There's some concrete in the way that doesn't allow me to push it up close to the wall. So if that's bothering you, it bothers me a little bit too, but once this grows, I don't really think it will be that noticeable. I tied the vines tightly to the lower wires and started guiding them. You'll see most people do this project starting with small star jasmine, younger star jasmine in smaller pots, and I wanted it to have longer vines already so I can enjoy the green sooner, but I did learn that that made it a little bit more difficult because I had more vines to thread through the wires. If the diamond shapes were a little larger, I don't think this would look as strange as it does right now because it does clump up a lot at the bottom, and I had to go in with some zip ties to make sure it tied tight to the corners of the diamond shape so that we didn't lose that shape as much as I could, but I think this happened because I was dealing with so many vines initially. If I could go back and do this again, I might start with a younger star jasmine that doesn't have as many vines so that I have less to work with when I'm installing it. Over time, I'll keep training them upward until they cover the wall. So that's how I built my Espalier trellis on a wall that was uneven around windows. It definitely wasn't a perfect process. I gave up a few times. Thankfully, with some encouragement and a little determination, I'm so glad I stuck with it because this wall already feels transformed. I can't wait to see how the star jasmine grows in. It makes this backyard feel a little bit like a European getaway, which is kind of the goal anyways. If you're tackling this on your own, I hope seeing my process helps give you some ideas. And hopefully you have a little bit more luck than me. Thanks for watching, and I'll share some updates once this wall fills out.